Hi everybody. So this is the first video of many that will be dealing with doing all of our avionics, well, all the Garmin avionics. So I decided to use a Garmin system, G3X. It's a very popular system with home builders, especially with Vans builders. You know, it's a really good system. Everyone loves it. So I've got the rudimentary system. I basically picked up. I picked up at Oshkosh. It's basically just a bunch of sensors, right? So the root of the G3X system is the magnetometer, the Adahars unit, and the OAT probe, or outside air temperature probe. And I got those. That's great. At the same time, I also picked up a G5 unit. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to wire everything up to simulate what the right wing looks like. There's the G5. So the right wing has the magnetometer out on the edge, the roll servo in the middle, and then it snakes back into the fuselage where it joins the rest of the avionics. I need to make sure that that magnetometer doesn't catch any interference from the roll servo. So I've mocked up basically how long that actually is, and when everything is hooked up, I'll be able to see by doing an interference test if there's any interference. Captain Midnight joins me to chat about stuff. So all of Garmin stuff works on what's called a CAN bus. Okay, for those not familiar with a CAN bus, this was developed by, well, it's a Bosch standard, and it's been around 30 plus years. I mean, if you've driven a car in the last 30 years, you've driven on a CAN bus electric system. All right, it consists of two wires. One's called high and one's called low, right? And it just transmits data. And all it is just a daisy-chained cable with two resistors, one on each far end of the CAN bus. Right, so 220 volt resistors. Sorry, 220 volt, 220 ohm resistors. And that's it. And each one of the pieces in that CAN bus is called a line replaceable unit, or LRU. Basically, it means that it's line replaceable, so you can just unplug it, plug a new one in, and it should work perfectly fine. Should being the optimum word. So the good news is that after I've got all this stuff wired up, oh wait, here we go. So here's the CAN bus terminal that I was talking about, and I didn't hold it close enough, so here's a picture. So that little sucker plugs in to the very ends of the CAN bus and provides the terminal resistance that a CAN bus needs to function. All right, that lets the system know where the ends are of the system, right? Now, not every line replaceable or LRU uses that terminal. Sometimes they just do a ground to a specific pin, and that's the terminus. But in this configuration, it just so happens that they both use that. And Garmin's awesome. All of their LRUs are D-sub, and they rock. Now, one thing I did do is I've got a crimper that crimps D-sub pins, but it's basically only used for 18 and 20 gauge wire. All of this is 22. The power, the CAN bus, all 22. These things use shockingly low amounts of voltage, right? I mean, some of them, I only have a 1 amp breaker just because I got to have some kind of, security form, but they don't make, I can't find a good breaker that's less than 1 amp. That's ridiculous. So, yeah, 22 gauge wires is all I really need. But anyway, yeah, my buddy Victor, who everyone should be familiar with, he's got all the tools. So he actually lent me the daddy of all crimpers, which is this one here. That is a Daniels DMC. Those things are very expensive, not $39.99. Here I am finishing up making the terminal. So this is the same rig that I used when I was testing my lights sometime in the past. My little fake miniature, my fake panel. So all I'm doing here is I've got one switch for the on and off. I've got a 10 amp breaker that is limiting the entire load to the avionics. And then I've got 4 breakers, one for each of the LRUs, right? There's the magnetometer you see me working on right there. And then it's the going left to right, it's magnetometer, roll servo, Adahars unit, and a G5. And there I am trying to maintain a semblance of some clean wiring. I can see how this is starting to how it's going to bundle up a lot of wires, right? Because what you see here is probably a third of the amount of Garmin boxes I'm going to have behind the panel. And once everything is wired up and I'm satisfied, then I've got a 12-volt power supply I bring over. I'm going to plug it in, and I'm either going to see smoke or I'm going to see something good. And happy to report that I did see something good. So the G5 does see the Adahars unit as expected, which is nice. However, I didn't have the OAT probe plugged into the Adahar, so it didn't really like that. So it said it had an incomplete profile. So I need to plug that in for that to work. The other bad news is that the roll servo doesn't really jive with the G5 unless there's an autopilot controller, which again, another CAN bus piece that I'm going to need. It's either that or I need to have the full G5, the full G3X display. So they make 7 and 10-inch displays. I think I'm just going to go ahead and get one of them because there's a lot of configuring to do, right? There's a lot of configuring to do. And I might as well start working on this now. I mean, I might as well. This is a big project, so. But yeah, this is it. First video. And I'm, like I said, very happy to say that it all worked, which you don't actually see until the very end. There I was taking a picture of the panel, which you see here. So, anyway, thank you for joining me, and see you soon.